It appears we are on the cusp of greatness with Resident Evil 2 Remake. What is up, guys? Andy here from Biohazard Declassified, and let's talk about Resident Evil 2 becoming Capcom's highest selling Resident Evil game.
Biohazard.
So this news comes to us from my friend CVX Freak Alex Neil himself, author of the Itchy Tasty Unofficial History of Resident Evil. Please check that out. Amazing book. If you're a huge Resident Evil fan, you will absolutely be blown away by the content that's in it. Digression aside, Alex Neil was reported on Twitter, Resident Evil 2 Remake, with over 15 million sold since 2019, is closing in on Resident Evil 5 to become the best-selling Resident Evil ever. RE5, 15.3 million, excluding the Switch, and RE2, 15 million. RE2 will overtake RE5 during the 2025 fiscal year, regardless of Switch sales. And if I can just blow up the chart that he's got attached here, you can see this goes all the way back to 2019 in like the... I mean, these are not great colours to use for a graph to differentiate, but this light orange is Resident Evil 5. Then you had the release of Resident Evil 7, and then you had the release of Resident Evil 2 Remake. So you can see Resident Evil 2 Remake, they've all had steep uprise in the second they're out, and Resident Evil 2 overtaking Resident Evil 7 in, what would that be, quarter 3? I can't quite see that, but quarter 3 2022, that looks like. Yeah, quarter 3 2022, so I haven't got my glasses on. And it is just about to overtake Resident Evil 5. And obviously you can say that Resident Evil 5 has had a 10-year head start in getting here. But yes, in the next couple of quarters, Resident Evil 2 Remake becomes the highest selling Resident Evil title. Unbelievable. And to be honest, this is ultimate vindication for survival horror fans. You got to think of what, not just Resident Evil 2 as a game, not being based on one of the best games ever made, but really a datum in how to deliver successful remakes and how to reinvent a franchise. And I'm not saying that Resident Evil 7 didn't play a part in that, but that formula was really solidified with the Resident Evil 2 remakes. And a lot of the stuff we're seeing now would not have come out if Resident Evil 2 Remake did not have those baby steps to make it viable to create a remake of a fantastic older title. I mean, just look at the landscape since Resident Evil 2 has come out, for survival horror specifically. Like, you could argue Resident Evil 2 Remake has completely resurrected, ironically, really, because it's about zombies, it's completely, like, brought it back from the dead, survival horror. And again, I do not want to take away what Resident Evil 7 did, because to me that was Capcom finally going, do you know what, damn it, we are survival horror once again. We're tired of fannying around with Resident Evil 5, with Resident Evil 6 as action horror. Yes, okay, they're high selling titles, but that's clearly not the direction that we want to go with this. And actually, I remember making a video back in like 2011 on a really old channel going, is Resident Evil dead? After the release of Resident Evil 6, I just wasn't happy with how the series was going. This isn't my Resident Evil. I shrieked to the clouds. But yes, they started to dip their toes into it with Resident Evil Revelations, kind of starting to tilt more into horror, but not quite. I would just say it's kind of dipping their toes in, and then finally going, do you know what, we are survival horror and we're back and better than ever. So that was unbelievable. We all, over the years as well, we always heard of like rumors of a Resident Evil 2 remake, and it never really came to fruition. But over the years we have had like looks into what could be possible with a Resident Evil 2 on a modern engine. You look back to Umbrella Chronicles, you look back to Darkside Chronicles that had scenarios in the RPD. I mean, let's look at Resident Evil Outbreak. It had a completely remade RPD as part of the Desperate Times scenario. That was really, really cool to see. I wanted to see more of that. Look at Operation Raccoon City. All of these games kind of like were teasing us as what was going to be possible. And then finally we got the announcement, the iconic announcement, we do it, Resident Evil 2 Remake, we do it. And in that interim as well, we also had modifications that were taken down at the time, which showed Resident Evil 2 Remake on a modern Unreal Engine. So it was all kind of coming together, and then bang, the trailer come out, and it was absolutely fantastic. The hype built. A lot of channels started to gain a lot of influence at the time as well. Residence of Evil was on the up. I think at that point I just started Biohazard Declassified when the game drops. It really felt like this was a beginning of a new era for Resident Evil. And again, I will look to the future. The games come out. Look how many games have came out that have emulated what Resident Evil 2 Remake achieved, and really has resurrected, as I said, survival horror. Let's look at Alone in the Dark. Let's look at Dead Space Remake. Let's look at the Silent Hill 2 Remake. I do not believe for a second these games would have had the approach that they did if Resident Evil 2 Remake didn't take them steps. And the results of the recent release of data really is vindication for what we've been saying all along, and that is, this is the Resident Evil we want to see. We want to see high quality survival horror. We don't want action horror. This is the direction that Resident Evil should go. Now, do I think that Resident Evil 2 Remake was better than the original Resident Evil 2? Absolutely not. I think there are things in Resident Evil 2 that they could have done better than the original. Like, for example, I've played Silent Hill 2 Remake now. I don't feel the need to go back and play the original, because I don't know, the way Silent Hill 2 Remake is unbelievable, but I don't feel like that. And I feel like that actually with the original Resident Evil 1 and the 1 Remake. I played Resident Evil 1, there's Remake, there's very little reason to go back and play the original. Now, you could say Silent Hill 2, I don't really have the nostalgia I do with Resident Evil 2, the original. So maybe there's an element of nostalgia that's clouding my judgment. But overall, I would suggest that Resident Evil 2 is an exceptional game, a absolute genre-defining title, and it should be played by everybody, and it totally caters to that modern audience, which is ultimately why it has done so well. And again, overtaking Resident Evil 5 is no easy feat. For the longest time, well, for the longest time, it's been the top selling title because of the, actually you'll see a spike here. That spike in 2016 is when it was dropped for the PS4, Xbox One, etc. It kind of had a bit of a mini resurgence. Resident Evil 5 is an exceptional game. It's an exceptional co-op game to play. It's just not what I believe to be Resident Evil. I have conditions that have to be met for it to be a Resident Evil game for me, or certainly a survival horror based Resident Evil game. And you know, Resident Evil 2 Remake ticks a lot of them boxes, 7 ticks a lot of those boxes, etc, etc. But what do you guys think? Are you excited and are you happy that Resident Evil 2 has conquered everything? It is officially, by sales, the greatest Resident Evil game ever met. And do you want to see more games remade in the Resident Evil style? Because remember, Resident Evil 2 2019 is not just fantastic because it's a genre-defining survival horror game. It's also a fantastic remake. So would you like to see more remakes in this style? Let us know in the comment section. Thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, look after yourself and hopefully we'll see you very soon.